today we have a special guest for our third episode of Tamara Talk. This is Kristi Burden, the pastor's wife of First Baptist Nederland. And today we are chatting about what it means to be a submissive wife in the biblical context and not so much our cultural context. So, thanks for chatting with us today. My first question is, what does the phrase submissive wife mean to you?
Well, I would say personally, growing up, my dad, I remember him always telling my mom, just hang on to my shirt tails.
Yeah.
And to me, that meant that he's saying, follow me, stick with me, and the road may be bumpy and there may be some wrong turns, but just follow me, and that's the way this is supposed to go. So personally, that's what I was able to see growing up. And scripturally, you really don't have to look any further than Genesis. When God created Adam, he said that he created a helpmate as fitting, or as was suitable for Adam. And so it means to me being a helpmate. And then if you even look over into Colossians, it says, wives be submissive, and it says as is fitting. So I thought that it was interesting that it used the word fitting both times when it's our design. God designed us that way to be a helpmate and to follow after our husbands.
Okay, awesome. So I feel the phrase submissive wife is associated with like a really negative image in our culture today. I know that I've struggled with that in the past. Even when Casey and I first got married, I was like, I'm not going to submit to anybody. Like, no, I'm my own person. And so I think that a lot of people struggle with that. And now that we have really truly dug into the Bible and what it means to be a submissive wife, and Casey's called to respect me, I'm called to submit to him in Ephesians. So why do you think our culture is so struggles with this and associates it with such a negative context?
Well, I think in a worldview that we're taught to be first in line and really to just like I said, to be first. And so if you're following after your husband and if you're yielding to him, that's not really, that doesn't really feel like you're getting to be first. I also think that there are cases maybe husbands, they're going to make wrong decisions sometimes. They're going to make, they're going to get it wrong. And so sometimes I think if a woman feels like she has maybe more insight in a certain area, sometimes we wonder why we should be following if it's not going to go the way we think it should go.
Right, absolutely. I completely agree with that. Okay, so how can we, as Christian wives, turn this phrase or this action of being a submissive wife into a positive phrase, and how can we kind of shed some positive light onto it?
I think you said as Christian wives, and so we do have to remember not to look at it from a worldview. We have to remember that we're designed to serve. And one scripture that jumps out at me is that we serve the Lord, not men. It's several places in the Bible, but one specific says serving the Lord with a good will, not for men. And so to me that means that maybe if our husband is making the decision that we don't think he should be making, or maybe even if we think that we have more insight, we're being obedient to God to go ahead and be submissive to our husbands, and that brings glory to God. So I think that's one thing we need to keep in mind.
Yeah, just to it makes God happy if we're serving and completely honoring our husband's
not in vain.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It makes them happy because we're doing what we're called to do. Awesome. Okay, so how do you personally exhibit this in your marriage?
Actually, I was talking to my brother this morning, and I told him I was going to do this, and he laughed. My brother and I, we're probably the two stronger-willed in my family, and we still get at it and argue, and so I don't think he really sees me as being very submissive. But I think the key word is personally. I think we need to keep in mind that submission looks different, I think, in every household, because as I brought up earlier, if you're fitted to be your husband's helpmate, that's going to look different because maybe my husband's needs, and you had mentioned we're to respect our husbands, but there are different needs that husbands have, and I think that we just need to have an awareness of what their needs are. Looking back to our very first Christmas, Jason and I were married very young, and we were both going to school and both going to college, and I remember our first fight, he had left his gaming system in the living room floor with all of the junk all over the floor, and I'd asked him several days to pick it up, and he didn't, and I probably wasn't very nice about it. And I think it took several years, and looking back, that honestly, it really wasn't a very big deal. it was something that he needed and still does. He needed to be able to go to work and come home and, you know, have some peace and have some rest. And it was sort of my issue that was on the floor. So I think I've come more to a point where, you know, let stinky socks fly. I mean, either I can pick him up or I can, you know, not really worry with it because I know that it's important to him to be able to come home and to have rest.
Yeah, I completely identify with that because my thing was always dirty clothes on his side of the bed. And that just drove me crazy. And now it's just like, you know, and I've realized over the years that if I don't attack him and say, pick these clothes up, like, why aren't you picking these up? Ever. You never pick them up, you never put them, it's 10 feet away, you know, I've had that discussion. But now that I feel like I've grown so much that I can say, hey, can you please, like, and he does it immediately. He never feels like I'm, you know, hitting him over the head or I'm like momming him, you know. It's just like, hey, you know, he does it out of respect. He's called to respect me, so he respects me when I politely ask him to, you know, pick him up. So it's not really, I mean, sometimes they still lie around for a little while, but I mean, it's, you know.
And I think there's timing in it too.
Yeah.
I think probably when I'm really aggravated may not be the time to talk to you about it. And another thing with, like with Jason, being that his profession is listening to a lot of people and doing a lot of talking, sometimes when he comes home, he just, like I said, wants to have some peace and some quiet, and I'm a real talker, and so I have to keep in mind sometime that I may not need to share every detail of my day.
Yeah.
And, so that's another way I think that I help him is sometimes giving him the quiet time that he needs.
I think too with like being a submissive wife is completely a learned process. You can't expect to know how to be a submissive wife on your marriage or on your wedding day. Like that's just, I mean, especially I'm only saying that from personal experience because I had no idea what that meant. For the, you know, probably the first year or 2 years, I didn't even believe in that. I just thought it was silly, you know, like that's Bible time. It's, you know, we're feminists now, like we're women, you know, we rule the world, you know, and so, but I learned how to do it more every single day, and I learned I feel God's love when I do it because I feel His love from whenever I'm doing what I'm called to do. So that's definitely something you have to learn.
Absolutely.
You can't.
Still working on it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think, and I truly believe, like in any life season, you're never done learning. Like you're always learning, and you're learning together and growing together. So it's exciting to see what you can learn each day together.
Wow.
Okay, so one last thing. I started this book that stopped reading because it kind of like gave me like, you know, hinky feelings or whatever. So, but basically it was in the Christian living section, you know, so I thought it was a decent book to read, and I'm not saying that it wasn't, but she had a very almost scary approach to what being a submissive wife meant. And she said that for 30 days that the wife shouldn't have any say in any situation. Anytime her husband spoke, she was just supposed to smile and nod and see how that affected their marriage or your marriage. So what is your opinion on that? Do you think we should be quiet at all times? I mean, do you think we're allowed to have an opinion, you know? Like,
First of all, I think it's impossible. I know for me personally, that would be impossible for me not to have an opinion and to be quiet and to not share that. It's funny, a couple of weeks ago, my husband and I were able to go on a rare date, and it had been a couple of hard weeks before that, and I asked him, I said, you know, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And I just remember him saying to me, please plan it. And again, that was something that he needed for me to do, and so I figured out where we were going, and I didn't ask him questions or even tell him. We just went out and we had a day together, and he mentioned toward the end of the day, he was like, thank you that that's something that I didn't have to worry with.
Yeah.
And so I think that being submissive, you're going to be leading in certain ways in the areas that he needs you to lead. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I keep going back to the fact in Genesis, we chatted about that earlier, was that God created woman from man's rib, or Adam's rib. So, like, side by side. It's not from his foot, it's not from underneath him. Like, we're supposed to, marriage is about partnership, it's not about dictatorship. And that's me personally, that's my opinion on how marriage is supposed to work. It's a true partnership. It's not like, yes, Kason is supposed to lead me, but we're still supposed to work together to figure stuff out. And we can't work together if I don't have an opinion, you know?
You think about, I've seen videos, recently there was a funny video where they were making fun of women, the whole thing about where do you want to eat? And, I don't care, and just like, where do you want to eat? And I don't really think that, for the most part, men want women to be indecisive or without an opinion. I think that, like we had said earlier, I think that there's timing and in a proper manner in where and how we lead and what it is that we do to help in our family and our marriage. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that is the conclusion of our episode, and we're so excited that you came by and chatted with us. And we hope that this gave you a little bit of insight and kind of what it means to be a Christian submissive wife and not just what the world tells us that it may or may not be. And so we just thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.